on this, I believe it's August 20th, 2025. And with that, I've called the meeting to order, and I'll ask Natalie Watts to call roll.
Board Member Bailey.
Here.
Board Member Crow Iverson. Here. Chair Donaldson.
Here.
Board Member Gold.
Here.
Board Member Henjum.
Present.
Board Member Lineweber.
Here.
Board Member Rainey.
Here.
Board Member Risley.
Here.
And Vice Chair Williams.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. And with that, we're lucky, we're fortunate today to have Colorado Springs Police Department Chaplain Gene Steinkirchner with us to give us the invocation. And then afterwards, I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And with that, if you join me in standing.
Good afternoon, Utility Board. I see some familiar faces. It wasn't too long ago I stood before you shortly. And good afternoon to you, citizens. So I would like to read a scripture, if I may. It comes from Philippians. I can do everything through him who gives me strength. Could we bow our heads in prayer? Almighty God, I stand before you, but we stand before you, Lord. And as we bow our heads in prayer to honor you, Lord, we are very grateful to have this opportunity. But as I have come here today to offer prayer, seeking a blessing upon this utility board for the responsibility they have to take care of this city is so tremendous and great. And it's only by the wisdom and power and knowledge that you present to each one that they're able to do this. We are grateful that they serve you and serve this community. And we're grateful that we have this opportunity to honor you, Lord. We ask this blessing now upon this board in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. And as Chaplain Steinkirchner was pointing out, he also gave the invocation over at City Council just a week ago, yesterday. And so thank you very much, Gene, for going back to back for us. And with that, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. One under in be seated. Okay, our next agenda item is the consent agenda. There are 4 items today. We have approval of the July 16, 2025 Utility Board meeting minutes, the UPAC reappointment of Chris Meyer, who is with us here today, the Arkansas River Power Authority intergovernmental agreement. We had a presentation on the ARPA, I'll abbreviate that to ARPA, IGA at the working committee on Monday. The vote to approve the consent agenda today will not mean we are voting to approve the ARPA IGA. The vote today is simply to move this item on to the September 9 City Council meeting. There was discussion at the Monday working committee meeting that we would like this item to be put on the regular meeting agenda and not on consent over there. If there are no objections, may I have a motion followed by a second to approve the consent agenda? All those in favor of approving, well, let's do that part first.
Here.
All right, so thank you, Board Member Henjum, for the motion, and a second by Board Member Bailey. Is there any discussion of that? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so that passes unanimously. And I just looked across and I noticed that we're joined today by Deputy Chief of Staff Ryan Trujillo. Good morning, Ryan.
Good afternoon, sir.
Anything you'd like to say?
Not at the moment,
Right now?
but appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. We'll move on to item number 4, which is customer comments. And I'll look over to my good friend Natalie Watts and see if we have any customers signed up online.
We do not have any customers who've signed up today.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience today that would like to speak? Forever hold your peace. Okay, so no one indicates they'd like to speak, so we'll move on to item number 5, which is several recognitions. The first is we're going to recognize National Preparation Month. Erin Duran, Emergency Management Program Manager, is here to let us know more about this. Good morning or good afternoon, Erin.
Thank you, Chair Donaldson. Yeah, Erin's here to do a recognition for National Recognition for Preparedness Month. As you said, she is our program manager over emergency response and emergency management. So a lot of activities coming up with tabletops and things related to wind. We've done some major things with fire response and wildfire with the fire department and the police department in the city. Erin's team of one also does things related to cyber tabletops. And so everything we can to be prepared for any kind of emergency. So I'll turn it over to Erin. Thank you.
Thank you, Summer, and thank you, members of the board. Very happy to be here today. This will be my 4th time coming before you to ask you to formally recognize National Preparedness Month. National Preparedness Month is in September, so it's next year. We are looking at this in advance. And we have moved, if you've been here the last couple of years, we did also, this is our 4th year having a emergency preparedness week here at Colorado Springs Utilities. That will be the last week of September. Previous years I came before you and it was in the last week of August, but we shifted it a month so that it's within the month. So FEMA recognizes National Preparedness Month just as an opportunity to really share with the community, with your family, friends, the importance of being prepared before a disaster. As Summer said, we have lots of activities planned for September to include ongoing messages throughout the month for our employees about personal preparedness, really looking to it. If we are going to be responding to an emergency, our families need to be ready for us to be out and not at home with them. So that's going to be one of our looks for September. We also have a lot of activities planned that last week in September. Very excited. The point of this Emergency Preparedness Week is really to organically have our employees and our staff go through activities related to preparedness. And so we have an event happening the first 3 days of that week where it's called the First 10. Have about 300 people from our construction and operations areas that are working very closely with the Colorado Springs Fire Department and Police Department, really getting our teams prepared for that first 10 minutes if something were to happen on a construction site, a collapse or anything like that. What can they do to help themselves and help each other for that first 10 minutes before our partners arrive? So that's very exciting. And just to highlight as well, the end of the week, we're going to have a very large functional exercise. As Summer said, we do a lot of tabletop exercises. Those are discussion based. We did one on wildfire earlier this year with our Colorado Springs Fire Department. Functional exercise, we get to play. So we're going to have about 125 people over 10 different locations, our locations, and we're using the phone and we're making phone calls and we're in our command center. We are using a scenario similar to our 21 windstorm, but we're going to make it very cold. So we're going to challenge ourselves that we're going to have a big event when it's very cold, unlike 21. And so that'll be a good event where we're really all levels of leadership and some of our independent contributors are involved in that. So very excited about what's coming up in September and I'm very happy to be here to share with you the great things that we're doing. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Erin. Is anything else from you, Summer, on this?
No, I really want to thank Erin. She, again, is a team of one managing this, but she's brought employees together from all over the organization to really stand up our emergency response and that training component. So everybody's really, really prepared and ready to roll. And we see that every time now we do stand up ICS fairly regularly, and we have very good success at that. And that's really Erin developing this program and kind of being the champion and carrying the torch for all of us. So thank you, Erin.
And yeah, go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, and this is something we've continued to evolve, over time. And we take lessons learned, the windstorm, what happened there, one of our commitment, to time, we briefed our utility board at the time was lessons learned and implementing those lessons learned. So this is just part of that continued evolution in that of how do we can respond quicker, establish better communications and really be prepared for those events we don't know. You don't always want to be ready for the last event because the next event may be different, maybe worse, maybe bigger. So I'm very proud of the team because I don't want to jinx this, but we haven't had substantial events. So we use ICS in our day in, day out activities to allow us to be able to respond in an integrated response if need be, working with the city, federal agencies. So it's good that we sort of got this in our sort of called battle rhythm of, how do we operate? And I think we just continue to grow. So thank you, Aaron.
Okay, thank you, Travis. Any comments from board members or questions for Aaron? Aaron, looks like you were so thorough. There aren't any questions or comments, so thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before we go to the next recognition, I had intended when we did our consent agenda to ask Chris Meyer if he wanted to come up and say a few words about his time on UPAC or any other comments. Okay, please do.
They've sort of taken all of that stuff away from her.
Hi, I'm Chris Meyer, a member of UPAC. When I was originally awarded, became an alternate as well as a member of UPAC, I was out of town and I could never attend. So when this came up, I definitely wanted to be here and just very simply to thank the board for what you do. I think the UPAC structure is a very good structure, simply put. It allows members of Colorado Springs community that have experience in maybe some areas that you don't to bring it, offer our knowledge and our experience to answer questions to help you in governing Colorado Springs utilities. In my background, which is largely energy and natural gas, I've had to deal with utilities not only across the United States, but in Canada and Mexico, and was very, very happy to be asked to serve on UPAC because I think very highly of Colorado Springs utilities and specifically the employees who definitely have skin in the game because they live here. They do an excellent job, and I'm glad for the opportunity to serve Colorado Springs utilities as well as the board. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. I'm glad I asked you to come up and make some comments because that's valuable for us to hear. And I've seen Chris in action on UPAC, and we're lucky to have him. So thank you.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could I just make a comment?
Yeah, please go ahead. Board Member Risley.
Thank you. Chris, I just wanted to extend my gratitude to you and UPAC for the service that you provide. I think you did a great job of articulating the importance that UPAC represents as it relates to this governing body and the work that we do. But I, again, just wanted to thank you for your service and your time and effort and your expertise to hopefully keep us on track with making good decisions for our ratepayers in our community. So thanks.
Well, you're welcome and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we'll move on to our second recognition. Renee Adams, our Chief Human Resources Officer, will tell us more about the Champion of Wellbeing Emerging Leader Award. So Renee, why don't you go ahead?
Oops. Thank you, Chair Donaldson, Vice Chair Williams, and the entire board. I'm really happy to have Sarah Akins here today. Sarah has just recently been promoted. She will start in her new position as the Safety and Health Manager on September 1st. And Sarah has been with the organization for 17 years. All of her time has been spent in safety and health, most recently as the field safety supervisor. She rotated over to that position on April 1st. And prior to that, she was on the occupational health side as our clinic supervisor. And she is certified as an industrial hygienist. So we're happy to have her here today. She went up last week to accept this award. I'm going to let Sarah tell you all about it.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Donaldson, Vice Chair Williams, and members of the board. It is my honor to be here today to recognize an outstanding achievement in workplace wellness and employee well-being. I'm proud to share that Colorado Springs Utilities has been awarded the Champion of Wellbeing Emerging Leader Award by HealthLinks a nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing worker health, safety, and well-being. This award honors organizations that not only prioritize a safe and healthy work environment, but also lead with intention, innovation, and care. Colorado Springs Utilities exemplifies these values through its proactive and holistic approach to employee well-being. The Total Worker Health Committee has played a vital role in fostering a culture where employees are supported in every aspect of their lives, not just at work. The committee's thoughtful goals and initiatives reflect a deep commitment to integrating physical and mental health, safety, and overall well-being into the fabric of our organization. Please join me in congratulating utilities and our committee with this well-deserved recognition.
All right.
Thank you.
And do we have questions for Sarah? Do we have comments? You've kind of lucked out, Sarah. You caught us on a quiet day. We're never like this. Are there any further comments from Nay or Travis?
Now, can we grab a picture?
Yes, of course. Okay, let's go get a picture. Okay. Okay, now we'll move on to our third and final recognition, and this is it's a very important one, and it's a resolution of appreciation for Lisa Barbado, our Chief Executive Officer. Well, Chief Executive Officer Travis Deal will tell us about Lisa's impact on the organization as Lisa prepares to retire at the end of the month. And after that, we'll have a resolution read, and we'll have time for comments, et cetera, from board members.
Lisa loves this. Yeah, she was excited when I sort of prepared her that this was going to happen. Luckily, this ain't the first time I've got to thank Lisa. So hopefully there won't be as many tears this time as there was earlier. You know, to really state Lisa's impact to the organization is just an understatement. You know, she's, pushing, 28, 29 years, and it just been, from her whole time here, you'll see some of these old pictures, from earlier in their career all the way through. Listen to all the employees that she's impacted. It's definitely going to be a huge loss for us. So looking forward to her, spending time with the grandbabies and traveling, Yellowstone and everything in September. But we've sort of got to celebrate Lisa this month, and it's going to come, really, finalize on Friday with her going away party, and that'll be her last day. So I know there's a lot of employees here, a lot of employees online, and we've had a lot of conversation around it, but I can't thank you enough for working with you.
Okay, and with that, I will do a Vanna White and show everybody this, and then I will now read this resolution. I have the privilege of doing that. And so it's resolution 25-15, a resolution recognizing Lisa Barbado for her service to Colorado Springs Utilities. And there's about 5 whereas clauses here. So whereas Lisa Barbado has served as a valuable staff member and leader within Colorado Springs Utilities since August 31st, 1998, serving as Chief System Planning and Projects Officer. And whereas Lisa Barbado has served Colorado Springs Utilities and the community with unwavering dedication and exemplary leadership for 27 years, contributing significantly to the progress, sustainability, and reliability of essential services in our community. And whereas throughout her tenure as part of the executive leadership team of Colorado Springs Utilities, Lisa consistently demonstrated visionary guidance, professional integrity, and a profound commitment to public service, earning the respect and admiration of colleagues, industry partners, trade associations, and employees and the public. And whereas Lisa championed initiatives that enhanced operational efficiency, strengthened infrastructure, promoted environmental stewardship, and elevated customer satisfaction, leaving a lasting and positive legacy on the organization and the communities it serves. And whereas Lisa mentored future leaders in the industry and fostered a vision of creating tomorrow's utility through a culture of innovation, quality, integrity, and stewardship, inspiring countless individuals through her example. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors of Colorado Springs Utilities that Colorado Springs Utilities board members and utilities employees express their deepest gratitude and heartfelt appreciation to Lisa for her outstanding service, steadfast leadership, and enduring contributions. Be it further resolved that we extend our warmest wishes to Lisa for a fulfilling and joyful retirement filled with well-earned rest, new adventures, and the continued admiration of those whose lives have been impacted by her work. Dated at Colorado Springs, Colorado, this 20th day of August, 2025, signed by myself and the CEO, Travis Deal. And with that, a round of applause. And with that, Lisa, would you like to say a few words before the board members?
I would. Thank you.
Okay.
That was very special. I knew I was going to get a little emotional here. So I actually put some words on paper and it'll keep me more focused on what I want to say to you. But first of all, Chair Donaldson, members of the utility board, thank you for this opportunity to be recognized today. As I conclude my 27 years here at Utilities, I've spent some time reflecting on not just all the accomplishments and the milestones, but really on the people and the privilege of serving this community. I've been a utility customer all these years, and I've taken a lot of pride in making sure that we do the right thing for our customers. I've had the opportunity of working across the organization, not just on the engineering side, but also operations, about half my career in operations. Each role has really brought its own challenges and rewards, but all shared a common thread, really the opportunity to contribute to something larger than myself. While I could share countless memorable highlights on my career, the true highlight has really been the people that I've worked with. And that's really not just inside this organization, but it's outside this organization with our community stakeholders, but also the industry as well. I've learned so much from the field employees, the engineers, operators, project managers, and the leaders that I've worked alongside. And together, we really solve some tough problems. There's lots of key points in my career that didn't know if I was going to actually get through, but we made a lot of impact. And we celebrated hard successes and stayed grounded in our mission to serve this community. I'm really grateful for Travis and the officer team and all my colleagues across this organization. Your support and teamwork have meant everything to me, and I'm proud what we achieved together. And that's something that I'll always treasure as I remember working at this company. Colorado Springs Utilities has given me a career filled with purpose and connection, and that's why it's hard to leave. But I leave with pride in what we've accomplished together and full confidence of the future that you continue to shape for our customers. So thank you very much for this journey. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much. With that, I'm going to look, first I'll start if our Deputy Chief of Staff has anything he would like to add before we go to our board members.
Appreciate the opportunity. I just want to say on behalf of the city, I know that we've worked very closely together on a number of infrastructure projects, and you've always been the consummate professional. So on behalf of Mayor Yemi and the entire administration, congratulations on your retirement, and we really enjoyed working with you.
Thank you.
And now, any board members? Nancy, go ahead.
I respect the hell out of you, Lisa. And this organization has been very fortunate to have you for so many years. I feel like I have come to know you in these 4.5 years now on the board. And I think I can say that I see and know your North Star, what drives you. And it is full of integrity. It is really about our customers. It's about the organization. It's about serving others. It's about the people that you've been leading. And you have a servant leadership approach. You have a big heart, but a very smart and sharp analytical mind as well. And you bring those things together really quite beautifully. And it's really been an honor to work with you as a board member and to learn from you. And I will say, I think your grandchild is very lucky to be getting you to move to them. I'm afraid I got the lucky end when my grandkids moved here, so I didn't have to move. But I'm really happy for you for that opportunity to go focus on that part of your life. And you work very hard for this organization, and I know you're deeply respected. And so I'm very happy for you and wish you nothing but the best.
Other board members, yes.
Lisa, really from day one, it seemed like you were always the person that really tried to seek common sense. Like, that just makes sense. How do we get to yes? So many times in organizations, it's quickly to no because there's so much to do, so many things to get a goal. But you are always open to the idea of how do we get to yes? And that is such a key value that I constantly look at within organizations of how do we get to yes? It might not be exactly the right thing or that anybody necessarily wants, but it might be closer to that goal that everybody in the room can feel like they've moved forward on something. And so I just really appreciate your effort to kind of sense the room, sense the need, and then just basic common sense of like, this is how we should move forward. And so I've appreciated all of our conversations we've had. I'm really going to miss them. I consider you a great partner, and now I have to deal with Travis. So.
And we'll go, I see that board member Brandy Williams has her hand up online. So Brandy, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Donaldson. Lisa, my apologies for not being there, but trust me, this is not what I want. I was just thinking about it, and I've virtually known you your entire career. You started 2 years before I did. So have been doing this for 25 years here in a short 6 months, and I've been working with you the whole entire time. So I appreciate your dedication. I admire your service to Colorado Springs Utilities. I've said this before. I couldn't do it, but I'm happy there's people like you that can, because you stayed year after year. You were committed year after year, and you have the same amount of dedication, if not more, 27 years later than you did when I know you when I first started working with utilities. So we're going to miss you. We thank you for everything. And again, like Nancy said, your grandchildren are going to get an amazing role model. And I hope you enjoy retirement. So thank you for everything.
And thank you, Vice Chair. Anyone else? Yeah, Board Member Risley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Lisa, I just want to underscore a few things that some of my colleagues have mentioned, and they're spot on with all of their observations about you. First of all, though, there's no way that you're old enough to retire. Just that's not even possible. Right? But But again, to underscore some of the comments that have been made, I agree completely in terms of the comments around your North Star and the fact that you operate with such an incredibly high level of integrity and dedication. And you've always done the right thing for the right reasons. And I really admire that about you. And it's kind of funny, we've only worked together for about 2 years, a little over 2 years. I had heard your name in the community before, and certainly in the development world and contractors and so on. And I always thought, man, I want to meet this person one day. And then to have the honor of working with you collaboratively for the last 2+ years truly has been an honor. And it's given me the ability to see why you are so highly regarded in the community and why people have spoken so well about you in the circles that I'm connected to. And so I just want you to know that you've had that impact in this community. I think you do know that, but it bears underscoring. And so I just wish you the very best in your next chapter of life. And if you get bored, I'm sure that we could find a way to get you back here. So.
Other board members, anyone else? Yes, Board Member Crow Iverson.
So Lisa, I just want to echo what all my colleagues have said. And like Councilman Risley, I knew your name before I knew you in the community doing projects, a lot of, initiatives with utilities and whatnot in the development world. And again, it was always very highly regarded. It was always very well respected. And then to get to work with you in the last few years. And I know we're not always fun up here. So you always maintained a very professional, and you left the room before you screamed, which is very appreciated. But and again, we were just having a talk at lunch, and she's like, well, you retired once. How did that go for you? And I'm like, maybe 3 months. So good luck. I don't think it'll last 3 months. You'll find something fun to do. You could come back and be a board member. That would be great. There's 3 spots coming up in a year and a half. So very much enjoy those grandkids and kids as they come. That's what really matters. So good luck. Best of luck, Godspeed, and we'll see you around.
Okay, and anyone else? Then I had the privilege of reading the resolution, so I'll keep it short, Lisa, but it was fortunate that you were here when Nancy and I came on the board. It's been a real pleasure working with you, and you're a good person. You're a kind person, knowledgeable, professional, and so we're going to miss that. But if you're either here or in North Carolina, I'm sure our paths are going to cross in the future, and I look forward to that. And I'm sure that Chris Meyer would welcome you onto UPAC if you do if you get bored. There's always that. So thank you again. And is there anyone else who would like to speak, or should we have the picture? Oh yeah, I guess we do. I guess we should vote. I'll take wagers on this one. So
I'd like to make the motion that we
Okay,
adopt the
so we have
resolution of appreciation for Lisa
Okay.
Barbado.
and we have competition for this one. We have a resolution by Board Member Henjum, and then we'll go with Board Member Crow Iverson as the second on that. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that's unanimous. And with that, let's take a picture. Okay, so With that, we'll move on to our item number 6, which are the compliance reports. And the Utilities Board reviewed the I-2, I-4, I-8, and I-9 compliance reports at the working committee meeting on Monday. So there will not be a presentation on any of these items unless a board member would like to request a presentation. Yes, please go ahead.
If you don't
Board
mind, yeah,
Member
just very briefly, and it will
Mhm.
require our CFO, but just one particular item in the I-2. If our CFO could speak to the cash on hand, just for the public record, we did go into this in great detail. But I just would appreciate, because I understand actually a question is, are the working sessions recorded or available online?
Yes, they are.
They are, so
Yes.
people can go out there and
Yes.
look if they need to. Okay, in which case, never mind.
Okay. In
Thank
which
you.
case, we will,
It's available, and thanks for sitting up here, Tristan, but if somebody wants to go look at that, they can do that online with a working session.
And I may hold the seat here for just a moment as well. As part of the mid-year scorecard results that are there, there's probably some additional information that we had planned there that I can share that will walk through that as well.
okay, and we'll be right to that very shortly. So thank you, Board Member Henjum. And so that covers those, unless there is anyone else that had a desire as a presentation. It looks like we're okay for that. But we will hear about the ER13 report. Natalie Watts, Strategic Planning and Governance Manager. She's going to tell us some more about the 2025 mid-year scorecard results as referenced by Tristan.
Good afternoon, Chair Donaldson, Vice Chair Williams, members of the board. Thank you for having me. My name is Natalie Watts. I'm the Manager of Strategic Governance, and I'm here today to go through the results of the 2025 mid-year scorecard with you. So just as a reminder, this measures the organization's performance from January 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2025. The overall score was a 3.55 on a scale of 1 to 5, which translates to a rating of meets expectations. There are a total of 22 measures on the enterprise scorecard that are scored. When I came to present to you back in March, one of the requests of the board was to have a 3-year look back so that you could see year over year how things have been progressing. So that is what this slide is. So you can see going back to 2022, the scores for the mid-year results in 2022, 2023, and 2024, and then we also included 2025 in there. I also included the year-end results at the bottom in case you're interested in seeing that, but we're right in line with where we've been the last several years with that meets expectations. So now I will go through the results of each category with you, and then at the end, as Mr. Gearhart just explained, he will kind of provide a little bit more background information on some of those financial metrics for you. So we had 4 measures that were rated as far exceeds expectations. If you recall, we have 3 board focus areas on rates, reliability, and relationships. So the categories are broken out into those 3 subcategories. So under rates, with the residential front range comparison, we have the electric service, the natural gas service, and the wastewater service. And then under relationships, we had our safety, our occupational injuries, and illness rate all come in at far exceeds expectations. We had 9 measures rated at exceeds expectations, and I'm not going to read through them all, but they are there on the screen for you so you can see. And that is a 3.75 to a 4.49 on the scale there. We had 3 measures rated at meets expectations. The electric SAIDI, which is the System Average Interruption Duration Index, and that is measured in interruptions in minutes per year. And then the natural gas failures per 100 miles of pipe. On the rate side, we had the residential water service bill for the front range comparison.
Yeah, go ahead, Board Member Henjum.
Yeah, just wondering, so great that the natural gas is still in meet expectations, but can you just, somebody talk to just the trend at least is heading down and what might be behind that?
Summer. Talk about natural gas.
Just the trend is going down a little bit. If from a I don't know what it,
On the
it's a
failures.
3, but it's just, yeah, on the natural gas failures. Yeah.
So I think we see that we're having fewer failures. We're becoming more proactive in our preventative maintenance and replacement program through DIMP. Right now, we're ahead of that, but we also have the caveat of we're having more hits from all the construction in town. So you probably see some of those. But I think it comes to that, how we're attacking that DIMP program and really trying to be proactive in how we maintain and repair gas infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Summer, and go ahead, Natalie.
Okay, we had 3 measures that partially meets expectations under that rates category. It was the days cash on hand for the 3-year average, and under relationships, it was customer satisfaction for both residential and business. 3 measures that were rating as does not meet expectations. And again, our CFO is going to go over this here in just a minute, so I'll kind of skip over this. But our next steps, so leadership is working with their teams to improve on those 6 measures that were either partially meets expectations or does not meet expectations, and action plans are being developed. And then the 2025 year-end scorecard results will be presented to the Utilities Board in either February or March of 2026. So with that, I will turn it over to Tristan.
Yes, and again, good afternoon, Board Chair Donaldson.
Good afternoon, Tristan.
Vice Chair Williams, and all of our utility board members. I did want us to take just a minute, since we had a couple of these metrics at our mid-year look-in on the financial side that were showing up and does not meet expectation. Just to give a little bit of background on how we've ended up there at this mid-year look and some of the things that we have planned so that we can, going forward, show what we, the actions that we plan to take that will help us to bring some of these back into the range that we would like to be able to see them. So,
and Tristan, even before you go on, I just want to point out for ratepayers or citizens that are listening at home or anyone else that we have our work committee on Mondays, and then we have our board meeting on the Wednesday. And during that work committee, we went into this in some detail, and as was pointed out, it's recorded and can be watched. So there may be fewer questions today because we asked a lot of questions on Monday and went into this, like how are we gonna, why is it like this? How is it gonna be corrected? What's the projection? How long, et cetera. So Tristan's gonna cover some of that now, but for citizens, I just want you to be assured that if we don't ask a bunch of questions right now, the reason is we did that Monday so that this meeting doesn't get to be extremely long. So with that, go ahead, sir.
Yes, and I believe we can go ahead to the next slide here. Just wanted to walk through at the 6+6, so 6 months of actual, 6 months of forecast, how we've ended up at the ratings, particularly with our adjusted debt service coverage and days cash on hand, and that does not meet category. So what I've listed here is the main drivers that we have that have taken those from where we were at when we presented the annual operating and financial plan on that first line, 2025 AOFP. That's our annual plan that we have. You can see that we started out planning at a 187 for adjusted debt service coverage, a 157 days cash on hand, and a 53.6 debt ratio. All of those would be in the meets expectation range on those categories that were there. So right as we started out the year, the first item that I'd just like to highlight is we had some additional work at the end of last year related to plant outages. Our Front Range Power Plant in particular had a longer than expected outage related to some of our high energy piping. One of the first times that we've opened back up and done some of that critical maintenance that was there, and there was additional time that was needed to be able to do that. That started us out from a cash position that was different than what we had projected in our annual operating and financial plan, about $7 million worth of difference in that starting balance. That equates to about 4 days cash on hand difference just from that starting point that was there. At the end of 2024, we had basically what is a timing difference. We have items, goods and services that have been received. We receive those into the accounting system. If they're capital related, we actually will go ahead and debt fund against those, take our debt and apply them. So that next line that you see there, the $14 million relates to projects that we had received at the end of the year, but had not paid out on those invoices yet. That basically, that $14 million, we took the credit for that in last year's debt coverage. That's days cash on hand number that is there. So in January, February, and into March, we would have then received the invoices for those, and they are hit against this year's days cash on hand because we took the credit for those through accounting treatment at the end of last year. The next item that we have on there is our fiber project. We are spending about $20 million more in the fiber installation project this year than was planned. And that additional spend, the fiber project is a project that we are completely cash funding. We do not do debt reimbursement against that because we have an anchor tenant that is there and is giving us revenue that comes back. They have some specific use of that system in order to make sure that we keep all of our tax exempt status on our bonding. We've just decided that we will cash fund that project. Well, the additional spend then, that $19 million higher, that's a hit to our days cash on hand as well. The next item that I've listed there is our contracts in aid of construction, contributions in aid of construction, CIAC, Kayak. Those are developer projects and really relate also back to development fees that come from new home starts. What we've seen in 2025 is a slower than expected new home start environment that has been there. That reduction in development fees for those new home starts equates to about 14 million of that $17 million variance that's there. The rest is developer kind of funded projects that we had anticipated that are also running slower at this time. That equates to about 8 days cash on hand and an adjustment. So as we've started the year with lower cash balance and we've had some additional spend on projects like fiber, our cash balance in the bank has been lower than it was anticipated when we filed our annual operating plan last year. That means less interest revenue on those funds that are sitting in the bank. That ends up being a hit to our adjusted debt service coverage by about 0.02, as well as days cash on hand. So we are also currently showing, as of the June update, that we would be over in our O&M spend. Again, we still had some of that front range outage that we came into the year. It extended into 2025 from 24. So O&M, as we looked at mid-year, was showing over by about $6.9 million. The next line item that's beneath that is related to some capital labor that happened in the organization that had a coding error that was there in our work management system. Because of that coding error, it went to O&M instead of capital. So that's an adjustment that we need to address later in the year. And you'll see that in our plan for recovery steps. We need to take those dollars from O&M to capital. That has an impact on our days cash on hand and our adjusted debt service coverage. With all of those things going on, we've also looked at the way we have debt funded a number of our other projects and just other things that have happened throughout the organization. We've used those bond funds just a little bit different than we had in the AOFP, and that amounted to about $18 million to the positive side that we were able to look at those things. So the accumulation of all of those different main drivers that we have there is we were sitting at our 6+6, our mid-year update, at a 174 for adjusted debt service coverage, 131 days cash on hand, and 54.5% on debt ratio. The 54.5 in debt ratio actually exceeds expectation based on the way we've set up that criteria inside of our 5-year plan. The other two metrics currently at mid-year are showing does not meets. And I wanted to step through quickly just some of the plans on the next slide that will kind of show how we intend to be able to recover through this. So we do still have some amount of interest from our earnings on our bank accounts there that we intend, as we look at the update to those forecasts, probably drops down for us. That's about another $7 million, close to $8 million worth of hit there that will still happen that wasn't in the last forecast. That brings things down just a little bit lower than what we were showing, and it's part of what we need to make sure we're accounting for inside of the rest of the year. One of the things that did happen is a new accounting pronouncement that handles the way that we treat leases. Leases that previously would have been treated as O&M expense are now treated as capital by a journal entry and accounting at the end of the year. We did not have that in our forecast, so that equates to about $6 million worth of improvement in our metrics. It improves both our adjusted debt service coverage and days cash on hand. The O&M labor to capital relates back to that item with that coding error that I just mentioned from the previous page there. We'll go back and correct those time entry records to be able to move that $4 million into the capital category. That helps from a days cash on hand standpoint because capital does not hit days cash on hand the same way that O&M does. The next line item that we have there is we have the entire organization planning for $6 million worth of O&M reduction through the end of the year. You may have noticed from the previous page that we showed that we were over in that O&M spend, some of that related to some emergency work that we were doing on the plant. As I've worked with Travis and the rest of the officer team and really the organization, we are identifying $6 million worth of cuts in our O&M budget that we are able to then count as credit back to be able to bring our O&M close to the AOFP, really tying those things back to where we had planned in our AOFP to be from an O&M spend standpoint. And then the last thing that we've done is go back and look through all of our capital reimbursements. So as we take those bond funds that we had available through last year's debt issuance and what we have remaining in this year's debt issuance that we just received and said, how much of those can we apply towards our capital projects? What we see is there's about $27 million more that we can apply. By applying those debt funds to those projects, that helps improve our days cash on hand by about 14 days by making those applications. We wanted to make sure that that doesn't push our debt ratio higher by doing that out of bounds of where we would expect to be, but it really doesn't in the way that we're able to time some of those things out. With all of those inputs put together, where that leads us to is by the end of the year, we're able to, we see that from an adjusted debt service coverage ratio, we were able to improve that from 174, where it was currently showing, to a 176. That would be a partially meets metric. Our days cash on hand with especially that last adjustment with the additional capital funds applied can push us back up to 151 days. That would put us back in the range of meets expectation for days cash on hand. And again, that debt ratio finishing at 54.4% is actually and exceeds mark right now. So these are the plans that we've laid out for the organization. The organization is aware of these things, and we are trying to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to bring these numbers in where it is expected from those AOFP numbers to be able to make sure that we are doing and executing to the plans that we've laid out for the organization. We can go to the next slide. I believe it just shows where those.
Tristan, would you like us to hold the questions to the end, or?
Happy to take, this is really the last slide here, and I think I've already spoken to where these metrics we anticipate they land at the end of the year, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on why we're at where we are for mid-year.
And how we're planning. Do you want to hold your question, or go ahead now?
I don't have any more questions.
Oh, okay. I thought you had one. So I think go ahead and continue.
I believe that's all the information that I have here. Again, these are things that we're very much aware of, and as an organization, making sure that we are taking the appropriate steps to improve these when we do see they go into the categories that fall below meets expectation. We want to adjust accordingly as an organization to improve those as much as possible and do right by our customers and the plans that we put out there in front of everyone.
Okay, thank you. And so I'll look around now and see if there are any questions over that. And we did go through a lot of this yesterday, but some weren't here yesterday. And go ahead, Board Member Rainey.
Thank you, Chair Donaldson.
Yeah.
Just a quick question, and once again, maybe you already clarified this. The CapEx, you mentioned moving money. Can you clarify that a little bit for me there?
Yeah, so on the $27 million in particular, yes. So really, we try to balance in a normal year, we try to be about 50% cash funded, which is coming from our customers' rates. So all of the revenue that comes in from that pays for the about 50% of the expenses. The rest of that we get from debt funds, bonds basically that we issue. With our 5-year plan, we're actually borrowing a little bit more out there. That's why you see our debt ratio climb from being at a 50-50 ratio up to across our 5-year plan, it will get close to 59%, just shy of that. So we go back and we actually spend those dollars on those projects. And then after the dollars are spent on those projects, they hit our accounting system. We go back in our treasury department and we look and say what's available in those dollars that are sitting in basically savings accounts. Which of those do we need to put in to reimburse the projects as they are happening? And we do that in a ratio that's trying to hit the debt ratio overall objectives that we have as an organization. So in the next couple of years, on the electric service in particular, our use of debt is more like a 70-30 kind of percentage that's there. What we're looking at now is, was there an opportunity to advance some of those funds in this year in the projects? Really based on that increased fiber spend, we had higher cash spend that was on that project. Is there additional debt spend on all the other projects that are not the fiber project that we could reimburse against that still keep us in line with where we wanted to end up from a debt ratio standpoint, but also maintains our days cash at a better place, something that makes us look more stable again to financial rating agencies and all the other entities that are out there. So we are able to reimburse those funds based on the way capital spend happens. We're trying to time that over the entire 5-year window. But when we went back and analyzed based on that 131 days cash on hand, what we saw was there was additional funds we could apply this year towards those capital projects and improve our days cash on hand metric, which looks good for the organization if it is there and available. We saw through that analysis done after mid-year that it is available, and that's what we'll move forward in the back half of the year doing.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate the clarity.
Okay, and I don't see any questions online. I don't see any other questions here at the dais. So I think that was all that was being looked for from you, Tristan and Natalie. So thank you to both of you. And then to wrap up our compliance reports this month, the E2 includes the electric cost adjustment, gas cost adjustment update, and the water outlook report. Both reports were provided to us, the board members, in our packets, and there won't be a presentation on either of them unless requested. I don't see any requests for that. So item 7 was items called off the consent agenda. We'll skip over that one. We'll go to item 8. So the next 2 items we will be voting on. So this one, Renee Congdon, Utilities Division Chief with the City Attorney's Office, will go over a resolution concerning the working committee. And then after she does that, we'll go ahead and vote on it. So go ahead, Renee.
Thank you, Chair Donaldson. Renee Congdon, City Attorney's Office, Utility Division Chief. As many of you are aware, prior to March of this year, we had 4 standing committees instead of the working committee. And earlier this year, we discussed moving to just having 1 committee. And the committee would be made up of all 9 board members. We ran that as a pilot program and starting in March of this year. And in March, the board passed a resolution suspending the board bylaws and the excellence and governance manual, the sections related to the committees, because the 4 committees were hardwired into those 2 documents. And it appears, based on the conversations we had earlier this year, last month, that the board would like to continue with having just 1 committee in lieu of having those 4 individual committees. And so the resolution that is before you will be amending the board bylaws and the excellence and governance manual to remove the 4 standing committees and replace it with just 1 working committee. There's a red line of those changes in your packet. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, thanks for that summary, Renee, and we've discussed this a couple times in the past. Are there any questions for Renee or any discussion of this? So, yes, Board Member Risley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. No questions necessarily, but just a comment. And I'm certainly going to vote to enact this, knowing that it's a bylaw change that can be undone by some future body. But I just want to comment for my colleagues that you've probably noticed I don't attend those working meetings very much, partly because just my schedule is such that it's difficult to carve out yet another half day of time. That's my problem, not certainly your problem. But I also want to comment that I am certainly keeping touch with the matters that are being discussed and being kept abreast of the important issues that are discussed at those meetings. I personally did like the prior approach where it was more of a focused conversation around strategic planning or finance or personnel or what have you. So again, I'm not going to be obstinate about this, but that was just my personal preference. And I just wanted to share all of that with you publicly.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or anything? I'll say there's a trade-off. Either we have one day which is longer and everything is done in this one meeting, or we used to have 4 separates. If you're trying to go to all of them like I used to do, that's a lot of different days where you have an hour or 2 or 2.5 pulled out of it. So I think our attendance is better at this. Unfortunately, not everybody can block out that Monday. But I've seen it that the attendance is, we're getting 5, 6, 7 board members into these things where we used to have 1 or 2 sometimes at the meetings. So with that, I would ask for a motion to approve and a second.
Councilmember Rainey, moving to amend the bylaws accordingly per this resolution.
Okay, and is there a second? So a motion by Board Member Rainey and a second by Board Member Henjum. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, so that passes unanimously and all 9 board members are present. And with that, we'll now move to item number 9, which is our last item before we get to the board member updates. And this one is our 2026 budget and rate case. John Hunter, Financial Planning and Risk Manager, and Scott Shirola, Pricing and Rates Manager, will present this item. And again, just for citizens who are watching this was presented to us at the working committee on Monday, and we spent, I'm not sure, a couple hours on this at that time. So with that, gentlemen, take it away.
Good afternoon, Chair Donaldson, Vice Chair Williams, and members of the board. I am John Hunter, Manager of Financial Planning and Risk, and I'm here to present our 2026 draft budget. If we go to the next slide. This first slide handles how we would fund our 2026 appropriation. You can see the vast majority of it would be funded by our existing operating revenue. That's what's in place with rates currently, as well as the bond funds that we just procured about a week ago. Any questions on this slide? We'll go to the next one. This is the same look in the same categories just across the remaining 4 years of the 5-year rate case that was approved last year. Again, the vast majority of it will be funded with the existing or the revenue from the existing rates, with the purple bars being the bond funds that we will procure as we go out through this plan. And then the gold on top is the rates that were already approved last year. So you can see as that increases, we need to borrow less to meet our budget. Okay. This is the expense side of the 2026 budget by a couple of our bigger categories of spend. You can see that this is comparing what we're proposing for 2026 versus what was approved last year, with the biggest variance or driver increase being the capital projects. And that's really driven by our bringing forward the Horizon Power Plant and electric, as well as we bring that forward, there's an increase to debt service and then slight increases to fuel and non-fuel operations. Any questions on this? This slide is the same look, but what we presented to the working committee last month, just to show any tweaks we had in the last 30 days, with the only increases are the only changes really being to capital, the fuel line item, and then being able to bring down non-fuel operations and maintenance and debt service for a slight increase of $4 million from what was presented last month, or about 0.2%. Anything on this slide? Any questions? No? Okay. This would be the same spend categories across the remaining 4 years of the what was approved for the rate case. We can see that we do have, this will be our largest year of capital spend that we will be requesting. That will slightly decrease as we go across the 4-year plan, and fuel, O&M, and surplus transfers will be relatively flat, and that service will go up as we continue to fund this capital program, kind of to Tristan's point, at a little bit higher than we typically would from a debt to cash ratio. But across the 4 years, we're pretty flat at about a $2.2 billion request year over year. Next slide. Okay, this is our comparison of those projects, or those spend categories, going over what was in the 5-year rate case presented last year versus what we were proposing today, with what's also already been forecasted for 2025. We do have an increase in capital of $110 million. The vast majority of that's about $80 million in our advanced DEMP program that we've discussed. The fuel has gone down about $500 million, and that's really related to the cancellation or not pursuing any of the PPA contracts that we talked about this time last year. We have managed to find about $40 million in non-fuel O&M savings through some efficiencies, and really looking at what categories do we need to spend and where can we find some savings. And we really dove into that, trying to offset that increase in debt service of the $23 million from what we presented last year. And the driver behind that is really that we brought all that capital forward, where last year when we were looking at it, it kind of ramped up, and now it's going up this year and then kind of ramping down. So that's the difference there. And then surplus transfers are relatively flat. Any questions on this slide? Okay, next 2 slides kind of break out our total labor and O&M first by spend categories, our account group categories. You can see that labor and benefits are going up 16 and $4 million each from what was approved last year, and we'll have the drivers behind that are a few new positions, and then our continued look at the managing everyone's salary and keeping them up to market. And then the other big variance on this one is the miscellaneous accounting revenue. You see it's dropped $5 million. If you remember back from the metric presentation where we talked about the new GASB 96 for those leases, that's the driver behind that one. Any questions?
I don't see any, so.
Okay, next slide. This one kind of breaks it out by our divisional groups, and what their spend looks like compared to where we were last year. Some of these drivers can be because of how we've rearranged some of these groups. So some money moves in and some money moves out. But other than that, I think the bigger picture really came from the previous slide. So unless you have any questions on this one, forward. Okay. Okay, and then we're just going to give you a quick capital project overview. These are our top 10 spends in our electric budget over the next 4 years. You can see the 3 big drivers are our SEP Horizon Power Plant. That's our new generating plant at 550. Our ERP implementation, which really deals with our transmission system, at 261. And then fiber is about just over 200 million for the next 4 years. Any questions? Okay, and same look, but for gas. Our biggest drivers here are the DEMP accelerated work that I discussed earlier. That's the 80 million of work that was not in the 5-year last year, but is in this budget. Then we also have our downtown military gas supply project at 56, and those are really the 2 big projects in gas. Questions there? Next slide. Same look, but for water. Our biggest drivers here are really around procuring more water supply and storing it. The first one being Continental Hoosier, which is a dam raising so that we can hold more water in that dam. And then our water rights acquisition at 30 million, that's going out and procuring new water rights so that we have more water to grow into.
Yeah, Board Member Hendry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember when that project starts with the Montgomery Reservoir.
It's in planning now. I think it ramps up in 2027.
Yeah.
And then it really gets going after that.
I know it's a very long process, but yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, next slide. Okay, same thing for our wastewater budget. Really all of those projects in blue are related to our Eastern Wastewater System Expansion project. And that's going to be the lion's share of the wastewater budget for the next 4 years. With the only other really large and abnormal project that we've got going on is our Northern Monument Creek Interceptor project at 94 million. And then our common budget is all of the things that kind of assist all groups so that they don't fall into one service. And these are really around IT, fleet, and facilities. Obviously a lot smaller spend than what we've looked at on the other slides. So if you have any questions here. Okay, and then I'm just going to do a quick by service look. Same table that we presented earlier, but instead of by the spend categories, it's by the services. So you can see the electric is a big part of this $2.2 billion budget. And again, that 400 million increase is going to mostly be represented by the power plant. And then everything else is relatively close to what we asked for last year. Questions? Okay, and then the same look just across the 4 years. We can see that electric starts to ramp down as we finish that power plant, and then gas, water, and wastewater are ramping up as we start the big projects that we described in the previous slides. Questions? Okay, this is our 4-year metric. You got a good look at where we're at in 2025 in the previous presentation from Tristan, but this is where we're landing for our 4-year average for each of those. And we'll have the consolidated on the next slide, but all of these are really in line with where we want them to be. The 70% in electric is really just what happens when you have a service that's so capital dependent, and you'll go through these cycles of that going up and then coming back down. And that's what's driving our near 59% in the 5-year, but all the other ones are in alignment with where we'd want them to be. So any questions here?
And I don't see any, John. So.
Okay, 5-year outlook. I think this is my, okay.
Oh, we do have a question, Board Member.
Well, it's really just more of a comment and underscoring something the chair has said earlier, but I do want to make sure folks know that we went into way many more slides than this in detail at a 5-hour meeting on Monday. And so for those who are interested in knowing, we kind of dug deep on this, and I just want to highlight, because it is ultimately a part of the rate case, that it is a significant budget. There are increases for sure, and they're necessary for our growth, for reliability, for regulatory requirements, and not unaware or unappreciative of the impact that this ultimately has on our ratepayers. But this is really important work for over 200 square miles. Well, way larger, actually, when you consider where we get our water and all the infrastructure that is involved in a for-service utility. So I just want to state that for the record and encourage people who want to dig in deeper and know more to go back to the work session this past Monday. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And you can continue, John.
Okay, next slide. This slide highlights the same 3 metrics, but at a corporate level. You can see our 4-year average for debt service coverage is a 195, where we do get up to a 58.3 on the 4-year average for debt ratio, but we do not breach that 59% as our target to stay under, and days cash on hand at a 155. The bottom section is just a reminder of the rates that were passed last year and what the impact that has on the typical bill. I think the big takeaway from this slide is that we are not requesting any new base rates, that we still feel like those that were approved last year keep us where we need to be.
Okay.
With that, I will hand it over to Scott Shirola.
Great. Thank you, Chair Donaldson, Vice Chair Williams, Scott Shirola, Pricing and Rates Manager. As John indicated there on that last slide, we are not proposing changes to base rates as part of the 2026 rate case because as part of our rate case last year, City Council approved rates for the years 25 through 29 that will really fund the budget that John just described. As we look at what we are proposing today to file with City Council when we come forward with a planned date to file this rate case on September 9th, are several changes to our electric rate schedules, including the addition of several new rates, and we'll detail those here on the next slide, as in addition to some changes related to how we provide transmission service really to other utility entities. We are proposing various effective dates for these proposed changes, depending on what the change is. And this will be a very condensed presentation to what you saw on Monday, but please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. And at City Council on September 8th, you'll get a full rate case filing, which will include the full detail of the filing, including reports describing the changes, draft resolutions, tariff sheets, and all the supporting calculations. So with that, I'll jump into a high-level overview of our changes to what we're proposing to utilities tariffs, starting with the our electric tariff and the addition of a couple new rate schedules. The first one really addresses one of the hottest issues going on in the electric industry is how do utilities solve the problem of serving really large load industrial customers, particularly those customers that may be data centers, Bitcoin operators, could be large manufacturing type industrial loads. But the electric utility industry as a whole is addressing how we handle the risk of serving those types of customers in terms of potential for stranded cost, and not wanting to push risk onto the rest of the customer base. And so to address that here in Colorado Springs, what we're proposing is to add a new large load industrial rate schedule. And the terms of that are pretty comprehensive, and we've done quite a bit of research based on other utilities that have either proposed or had their regulatory bodies approve these types of rate schedules. But it includes service through an initial 10-year contract for the customer. It includes the requirement for a customer to pay for any new infrastructure, including transmission or substation equipment specifically to serve the customer. And it includes some collateral requirements in terms of preventing the risk of early exit from our service territory. So that is the large load rate schedule. The next change really has to do with renewable energy net metering. And we spent a good amount of time on Monday walking through the reason and the purpose for this proposal. At a high-level summary of that discussion, we demonstrated and described on Monday how net metering service, the way that the billing treatment of net metering works, has pretty considerable differences between how providing that service actually looks on the exchange of electricity onto utility system and the actual cost that it takes for utilities to provide service for net metering customers. We estimate for a typical residential net metering customer that the net metering customer is being underbilled by about $50 per month or about $600 per year. And of course, that cost is being borne by the rest of the residential rate class. Extrapolating that $600 per net metering customer out to the approximately 9,000 net metering customers that we have, that is approximately $5.5 million annually that non-net metering customers are bearing on behalf of the net metering customers. To address that, what we're proposing is the addition of a set of new renewable energy net metering rate options that include a demand charge based on the customer's peak usage at the hourly interval, the highest demand that the customer puts on utility system for the billing period. And we're applying our normal demand billing practices that we use across commercial and industrial practices, and that the vast majority of utilities use in terms of billing demand in doing that. We are looking at proposing this to be effective January 2027. So providing a runway for us to not only communicate with customers, but to be able to implement these changes in our internal systems and so on. I should have noted that the large load rate schedule that I previously spoke to, we're proposing that to be effective January 1st of 2026. Moving on to our next electric rate schedule that we're proposing changes to is an existing rate schedule related to our contract service wheeling to the military installations. It's a service where we allow the military installations to bring essentially their own energy allocation from their WAPA hydro to our system, and we deliver that through our transmission and distribution systems to our military customers. Right now, we bill for that service through two different mechanisms. One through our electric rate schedules, which recovers our distribution cost. The second component we recover through our open access transmission tariff to recover the transmission cost. Effective April 1st, 2026, we're proposing that our open access transmission tariff, or our OAT, will be removed. So we will no longer have that, and we'll have our costs included in the Southwest Power Pool OAT. And so with that, we're looking to include distribution cost into our electric rate schedules, really combining it with our distribution charge. So really condensing two charges into one for ease of billing the military customers. Moving on to our proposed changes to our utilities rules and regulations, or our URRs. The first two changes listed there, again, really touch on large load customers. The first one is directly related to the large load electric rate schedule, and some references in our URRs related to infrastructure requirements and the payment of fees related with that infrastructure. The second item related to the large load study fee is something that was added to the URRs as part of last year's rate case. And we're just making some clarifying changes in that, as well as reducing the load size requirement of when fees are applicable. One example of that is currently an electric study is required at 5 megawatts, but a fee is required at 20 megawatts. We're proposing condensing those two things together and having the fee applicable at 5 megawatts. And doing a similar thing with the remaining three services. The last substantive change to our URRs is the addition of a new hydraulic analysis fee. We currently have 4 levels of those fees. They really relate to development fees, and they vary based on the size of the site being studied and the number of water basins that they're really pertain to. The lowest level fee currently is a $1,600 kind of for a basic analysis. Our teams internally have identified that there's even some simpler analysis that we do for sites under 10 acres. And we're proposing an addition of a smaller fee of $200 per hour when we can complete the analysis for less than $1,600. In addition to those substantive changes to our tariffs, we have a few more administrative cleanup items in our electric rate schedules, our URRs, as well as our OAT that we are proposing. And the detail of those, again, will be in what you receive on September 9th. And then we have one procedural action that's been kind of hanging out there since 2022 with the passage of the Investment in Infrastructure and Jobs Act of 2021. 2 new standards were added to the Public Utilities Regulatory Policy Act, or PURPA, and utilities are not required to adopt standards when they're added to PURPA. What the requirement is that utilities study whether it's appropriate to adopt those standards. The 2 new standards that were adopted in 2021 relate to demand flexibility, and these are related to electric service. Demand flexibility or demand response, and the other one was related to electric vehicle charging. Utilities recommendation and really study is that with the adoption of EnergyWise rates, utilities' existing rate schedules, tariffs, and procedures essentially satisfy the requirements of those 2 new standards. And so our recommendation is that no additional action to adopt those is necessary because we already essentially do them. That is a summary of changes to our tariffs, and that procedural action on the next slide, just a little more detail on what we're proposing in terms of our OAT and then our transmission owner filing. So as I mentioned, related to the military item, on a broader level, utilities, as we enter into and prepare to enter into the Southwest Power Pool Regional Transmission Organization, we will no longer be an operator of our transmission system related to this type of service. We will be a transmission owner within the broader RTO. As such, we are proposing to withdraw our OAT effective April 1st, 2026. And coinciding with that, we're proposing to submit a transmission owner filing to SPP, or the Southwest Power Pool, that they will then file with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, on our behalf. And upon FERC review, potential modification, our transmission costs will be part of the SPP OAT. And so we're proposing to City Council to make that filing to SPP, that transmission owner filing. That filing consists really of 3 things. It consists of a adoption of a formula rate template. So it's a set of spreadsheets that calculate our annual transmission revenue requirement, or the amount of costs we need to recover for our transmission system. And so the adoption of that template. The second thing is essentially the 2026 annual transmission revenue requirement, or the ATRR. So what that amount is, the result of that template for 2026. And then the third item is the implementation protocols, which is a document that specifies how utilities will annually update that template and provide the ATRR on an annual basis, and the procedures for updating that, and the procedures for interested customers to request additional information and that sort of thing. So those 3 things are what we are included in our transmission owner filing. If we go and I think I mentioned we're proposing those things effective April 1st of 26. Looking at our next steps, I've spoken to several times the filing date of September 9th. It's typical as we come to City Council on that date to have that item be on the consent portion of the agenda, because really it's just an item of requesting a hearing date of October 24th. So we're not making a presentation. We're just simply asking that a City Council establish a hearing date. The hearing date that we're requesting is October 14th, which would both be the date for the rate hearing for the items I just discussed, as well as the first reading for the budget ordinance. The rate case hearing isn't an item that can be really on the consent portion of the agenda, since it is a public hearing. It has been in past years the budget ordinance has been on the consent agenda, so I kind of pose that as a question as I finish up here. And then as we move through the next steps, after the rate hearing, utilities will, really the city attorney's office will present decision and orders related to that rate hearing and the proposed changes for the rate case. They'll do that at the work session on October 27th in draft form, and then again at the regular session on October 28th. And again, that is an item on the open part under utilities business on the agenda. But again, I'd pose for the second reading of the budget that potentially be on the consent portion of the agenda if you so desire. With that, that concludes my prepared comments.
Okay, Scott, thank you for that. Any questions from board members? Uh-oh, there's one online. We're going to let them go first, if that's okay with you, Councilmember Rainey. And I was going to ask you to repeat that whole thing, Scott, but I won't do it. So, Brandy, board member, actually Vice Chair Williams, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Donaldson.
Yeah.
I again have a question on the renewable energy net metering. The effective date of that was 2027, is that correct?
That's correct.
So as we only have 20 more days that we can talk about this before we set the hearing date, I personally am not comfortable changing that with only 20 days for us to interact with the public when we have a whole, 14, 15 months to really have a conversation around this. So I would propose that we pull the renewable energy net metering out of here so that we can have that conversation with the public, because I don't think 20 days is sufficient when we spent the last, 15 to 20 years getting this put in place to only, change it at this point. So I would love that if we could do that as a board, or if we can bring that up. I know that the bond entities want us to be essentially unanimous in support of this, and I wouldn't want to vote against this because I don't believe that this is the right way to go, and I don't think 20 days is long enough for me to be able to figure out where it's going and if we can adjust it. So that's my personal opinion when it comes to renewable energy net metering. Thank you.
Do you have any comments about that, Scott or John? Recommendation? Or Kristen? Or
again, we do have the filing date that is set on that one as 2027. We feel like having the hearing as part of what we're looking at here in 2025 gives us the direction, excuse me, to be able to really start that communication work with our customers. We feel like we're in a much better position to be able to do that if we're having that as part of the hearing for this year.
Oh,
and then how would we change it, Tristan? If we don't agree with what's being presented, how would we go through that process?
Yeah, and I can partially speak to that as terms of how the rate hearing proceeds, and then council's interaction in the draft decision and orders. And I know Mr. Bidlack is here to help me out if I need some assistance. But as utilities presents its proposal at the rate hearing, there is of course opportunity for not only city council, but members of the public, including customers, to comment, ask questions, make comments to city council. And Mr. Bidlack at that meeting will poll city council on terms of how he is to draft really issues for decision for the October 28th vote of city council. So there is opportunity after hearing all the information at the rate hearing for city council to give the city attorney's office some indication of changes that they might like in utilities proposal. And then those changes could be incorporated in what is brought forward on the 28th.
So just to restate that, we could vote today to send it over to city council, and then on what day would we be voting on the rate case? Can you just remind me?
Correct. The vote on the rate case is scheduled for October 28th.
But it needs 2 readings, doesn't it?
good question. The rates are actually adopted by resolution.
Okay.
There's sort of an informal thumbs up vote that happens on the 14th after the rate hearing to really close the rate hearing. That gives the city attorney's office the direction on how to draft the decision and orders. And since Mr. Bidlack is here, I will turn it over to him.
And I try to keep it pretty straightforward. We could vote to send it over to city council today. We could do that, and then we can make this decision if we want to have an amendment or however we want to phrase it. We can do that at city council. And I won't get into the arguments, pro and con. I will support these changes, but go ahead.
Ask a
Mr.
question
Bidlack.
before Mr. Bidlack speaks, just so he could speak to it. Is that
Sure.
all right?
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Nancy.
So if you could answer the question, and I appreciate my fellow board member bringing this up. I tend to be in agreement with her. So my question is, why can't this go to in our 2026 meeting because it's 2027? It could go in that rate case, and why does it need to happen now?
Sure, thank you. Chris Bidlack, Senior Attorney with the City Attorney's Office. First to Ms. Williams' question, in terms of the procedure for the rate case is somewhat unique in terms of how City Council approaches it based on the way it's codified in City Code and the City Charter. And so while it can appear somewhat similar to an ordinance with two readings, it actually has the rate case hearing, which would be on October 14th, at the conclusion of which I go through the issues for decision, which is where council gives the thumbs up, thumbs down, head nod in terms of where they would like the documents prepared. And then the official vote on the resolutions would be on that October 28th day. So while it's similar to an ordinance, it is distinct based on council procedures. And then Ms. Henjum, to your question, it certainly is within the discretion of Utilities Board to direct utilities to take this item and put it in a subsequent rate case. I think Mr. Gerhardt's opinion is that it fits well in this context, but it's certainly within your discretion to give that direction to utilities.
And maybe just to offer a little bit more there, as we look at things, we're trying to balance here the discrepancy that Mr. Shirola identified for us, and that $5.5 million that is being borne by non-net metering customers by the rest of the rate base, trying to be able to address that in an adequate amount of time, while at the same time for those 9,000 customers that are on that rate, giving them adequate amount of time to be able to adjust into things. For instance, if one of those 9,000 customers wanted to look at battery systems, knowing that that is going in place gives them the clear direction, and they can go out and make those evaluations knowing that it's coming. Instead of with a couple of months, they actually get all of the time from this year all the way till January of 2027.
I have to agree with Dave Donaldson. I don't know that many people are going to be paying attention to this rate case, so they're probably not going to realize it till that first bill comes, unless Travis puts it in every newsletter for the next year, and that could be a plan. But my preference would still be to delay it to 2026, because at no point in time was it sold to the public as what we're presenting now. This is completely different than the conversation has been for the last 15 years. So I think it's worth our time, effort, and due diligence to make sure we thoroughly understand it, because I personally think there's still an overcollection in there, and Tristan, you and I haven't had time to sit down and talk about that. But I would like to be able to see those numbers so that in good conscience I can tell people this is why we're doing it and this is where it's coming from. And out of a $2.2 billion budget, I think a $5.5 million conversation is worth having.
And I believe the CEO has a few words, but before that, I would say we're really 2 months away from October 14th. So there's going to be time for us to talk with members of the executive team here at CSU. And then I think October 14th is a day when we can make a decision. Tristan, can you remind us, there's 9,000 net metering customers. How many are there that are not net metering?
Around 260,000.
Okay, so there's about 260,000 ratepayers subsidizing the 9,000 to a tune of $5.5 million.
Chair Donaldson, can I ask a clarifying question or two procedural questions?
always.
Okay. And this is directed at Mr. Bidlack. On October 14th, after the hearing, could council decide not to move forward with the net metering change?
As part of the hearing on October 14th, council can propose modifications, amendments, removals, any of those types of actions in relation to what utilities has proposed. Excuse me. So at that point, at the conclusion of the hearing, if there was a proposal, my question would be, do you approve of the proposed rates as modified as XYZ? And that would essentially be amending utilities proposal based on the record that council has at that hearing.
Thanks. And then my second question is there a period of time where no ex parte communication is allowed?
Yes. Starting with utilities filing of the proposed rate changes on September 9th, that kicks off the ex parte period that many of you have heard me discuss previously. And that is the period in which we ask that communications be limited regarding utilities' proposed rates. The goal of that action is so that all council members have received the same set of information when making their decision at the rate hearing on October 14th. At the October 14th hearing, I will ask for any council members to supply any ex parte communications they have received. And we encourage anybody who wishes to engage in those conversations to appear at the October 14th hearing to express their opinions, questions, comments, so that all council members can receive that same information.
And one more, sorry. And would be talking to the officers be considered ex parte communication?
Yes, it's the ex parte communication relates to council members having conversations regarding the proposed rate changes. While utility still engages in conversations with the public to prepare customers for upcoming changes and things like that, the wall is meant to ensure that city council members themselves all have the same body of information to be evaluating at the rate case on October 14th.
Okay, thank you for those clarifications.
Can I just restate that? That means, Chair Donaldson, we only have 20 days. We don't have 2 months. We as
For-
board members only have 20 days to have these conversations
Yeah.
with staff and with the public before we get into that phase.
Yeah, and I personally, I'm comfortable with that. The discussion yesterday, well, it wasn't yesterday, Monday at the work committee leads me to believe there's a majority on the board who would like to proceed. And so with that, let's see if there's a motion in a second, and then we'll have discussion if we want. We'll go to a vote to move the 2026 budget and rate case over to city council. And again, we can adjust it at that date on the 14th if we desire to.
Correct. City council can propose any amendments, and it would be the same approach to a majority vote would carry an amendment.
Okay. So is there a motion and a second to move the 2026 budget and rate case over to city council?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by board member Risley, a second by board member Rainey. And is there any further discussion before we go to a vote? Board member Hanjum.
Yes, I really agree with board member Williams that this doesn't give us enough time to be communicating with those who are utilizing solar. And I think we need more time to be able to do that. And I agree that it's not enough time for us to really understand it and then to be able to figure out how we're going to be working with the public to help prepare them for this kind of change. I do appreciate and understand that waiting a year gives people who might have less time to make a change on their end related to this overall change in the system. However, it gives you a whole year to begin to inform people that this is where we're headed. And otherwise, we don't have that time. And I think Board Member Williams' point about how many years we were ramping people up to this, and there's a significant change in the overall energy system and how we're obtaining our energy and generating our energy and so forth. I just think it's good public process. So I actually am not in favor of moving it forward with the solar.
Okay, thank you. Any other board member comments or discussion? If not, then seems like we'll have some no votes on this one. Should we do this? Would you like to do it by
Roll call.
roll
Yes.
call? Yeah. Okay. Would you go ahead and do the roll call, please?
Board Member Bailey,
And just so that it's clear, yeah, an aye would be to move it over, to move the 2026 budget and rate case over to city council.
okay. Board Member Bailey,
Still are.
okay. Board Member Crow Iverson,
Aye.
Chair Donaldson,
Aye.
Board Member Gold,
Aye.
Board Member Henjum,
No.
Board Member Lineweber,
Aye.
Board Member Rainey, Board Member Risley,
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams.
Nay.
Okay, the vote was 7-2.
Okay. And Vice Chair Williams, yours was a nay, is that right? Okay.
That
I
is
thought it
correct.
was, okay. I appreciate clarification. Okay, so that completes item number 9. So thank you, gentlemen. And with that, we will now move to board member updates. And you're not a board member, Mr. Deputy Chief of Staff, but we'll let you give you an opportunity at this if you would like.
Thank you for the opportunity, Board Chair. No updates at this point.
I guess you actually, well, you're kind of, yeah, ex officio. Okay, and with that, we'll go online. We'll start with Vice Chair Williams.
No major updates. I'm still stuck at home, so hopefully by September I will be there in person. That is my goal. But thank you guys all for your willingness to include me. And I, again, wish I was there, but not quite yet. So thank you.
Okay. Well, we wish you a speedy recovery. And also online is Board Member Gold.
No significant updates. Just take care of your health, everybody. It's not fun to be sick.
Okay, thank you. And we'll start at the far end over there with Board Member Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing from me today.
Okie dokie. And we'll go to Board Member Lineweber.
No update.
Oh, okay, we're going quick. Board Member Henjum.
Yes, I do have a couple. I just want to, let folks know, most of us, I think, attended both of the tours of our, I don't know what the great long term is for our wastewater recovery, whatever, Las Vegas, where not only do we treat our wastewater, but we make sure that we have clean and safe water. It was an incredible tour and really appreciate the time spent to set that up. We actually had a couple of county commissioners join us, which was terrific. And so very, very grateful for that. And the culture over there, the culture of the humans, not the cultures that they culture, is really outstanding culture in our utility system. So really grateful for that, as well as the trip to the Ruxton hydropower plant and the celebration of the 100-year.
Vicky, are those?
Dan Hodges? I don't know. Anyway, somebody else agreed. It was an amazing, tour, and really appreciate the time that we have, the effort that goes into helping board and community and others and county commissioners understand the complexities of our utility system. So with that, that's all I got. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Board Member Risley.
Thanks. No updates from me.
Thank you. Board Member Rainey. Thank you. Board Member Crow Iverson.
I also attended those trips and up the COG, and it's very educational, and I just appreciate the chance to do that. So thank you for those trips. They're fun. Thank you.
And thank you. And I'll just agree with what the two previous board members have said about on-site visits for the Board of Utilities here. It's very helpful because it's a whole different level of knowledge you have when we vote on certain infrastructure, when you've been there and seen it firsthand versus only seeing a picture or a diagram or reading about it. So it's very beneficial for us. It's great that there was some media along so you could then put it on television that night and others could see it. So those two were great. I'll say that just a personal little update, the fiber installation's happening on my street right now. And I would say that based on what's happening on my street compared to our former colleague Randy Helm Street. I think that process has improved and it's going better and smoother. So I'll give you a final report, next meeting. But that's all for me. And if there's no alibis, we'll just move to the summary of board action. So Natalie, you want to give us that?
Sure. So today you approved the July 16th board minutes. You approved the reappointment of Chris Meyer to UPEC. You approved moving the Arkansas River Power Authority IGA to the September 9th City Council meeting. You passed a resolution of appreciation for Lisa Barbado. You approved a resolution amending the portions of the Utilities Board bylaws and Excellence in Governance Policy Manual rules regarding standing committees and rescinding Resolution 25-11. And you voted to move the 2026 budget and rate case to City Council for the September 9th meeting.
All right. Thank you, Natalie. And so now we'll move to essentially our last item, which will be a closed executive session for the 2025 CEO mid-year performance review. Assuming that we vote to do this, we will go into closed executive session to discuss the 2025 CEO mid-year performance review. Once we come out of the executive session, we will adjourn. That's the only business we'll have left for those watching online. We estimate the closed executive session will take about an hour. So we should return to open session at it's now 2:50. So we'll have to take a few minutes to fix up the room. So probably we'll be back at about 4 o'clock and then we will simply adjourn. I'm going to ask Renee Congdon to read the closed executive session notice and poll the board members. After the executive session concludes, we will adjourn. Renee, can you please read us into executive session?
Thank you. In accordance with City Charter, Article 3, Section 360D, and its incorporated Colorado Open Meetings Law, CRS Section 246402-4F, and Utilities Board Bylaws Rule 10C6, the Utilities Board in open session is to determine whether it will hold a closed executive session on one issue. The issue to be discussed is the 2025 mid-year performance review of the Chief Executive Officer. The City Attorney's Office, on behalf of the Chair of the Utilities Board, shall poll the Utilities Board members, and upon consent of 2/3 of the members present, may conduct a closed executive session. In the event any Utilities Board member is participating electronically or telephonically in the closed executive session, each Utility Board member participating electronically or telephonically in the closed executive session shall affirmatively state for the record that no other member of the public not authorized to participate in the electronic closed executive session is present or able to hear the matters discussed as part of the closed executive session. If consent to the closed executive session is not given, the item may be discussed in open session or withdrawn from consideration. Okay, so Board Member Bailey. Board Member Crow Iverson.
Aye.
Chair Donaldson.
Aye.
Board Member Gold, and I will need you to both say yes if you want to go into closed executive session and then confirm that nobody else is with you or able to hear the session.
I confirm that nobody else is with me and nobody is able to hear this session.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Henjum.
Aye.
Board Member Lineweber.
Aye.
Board Member Rainey.
Aye.
Board Member Risley.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Williams, I will need the same from you as far as agreeing to, letting us know whether or not you want to go into closed executive session, and if yes, that there's no one else with you or able to hear the session.
Yes, and yes.
Okay, thank you. It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you, Renee. So we're going to take a 5-minute break to prepare the room for closed executive session. Staff, please prepare the room and we will we'll meet again at on the hour, 3 o'clock.